I considered opening this show with a bad British accent, but I'll save you the trouble because the Bears are headed to London. Actually, they're already there, which in and of itself is a great thing to talk about as they get set to take on the Jacksonville Jaguars. But what happened in their game against the Panthers that's still worth talking about? What should we look for as they face Jacksonville? What are the storylines headed into the game? What's going to happen in the bye week after the fact? Nick and I will talk through everything on this episode of Bear With Us. What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to Bear With Us, a Chicago Bears podcast hosted by yours truly, Robert Schmitz, editor-in-chief of the Bears blog, right here alongside my co-host, Nick Whalen of Football Guys. And now that the intro's out of the way, Nick, I'm excited about this. We feel good, right? Bears are 3-2. They're exactly where we thought they were. And can I just say how luxurious, how amazing it feels, Nick, to finally have gotten the soul of the season right in the offseason, as opposed to constantly ending up overestimating the team. This is who we thought we'd get. And that in and of itself is generally a pretty positive sign. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, last year, 0-4, right? Losing games we thought we were going to win. I think at week 5 last year was the Denver game. And it's, I don't know. There's a sense of, I think, calmness, confidentness that I have with the team, with Caleb, with some of the rookies, with some of the veterans, like Kevin Byard is a dog. And that just makes everything, you just have, you go to sleep and you don't worry at night about the Bears, which is kind of nice.
Oh, yeah. I mean, look, I get it that teams surprise every year, right? But in my opinion, Nick, I don't know if you feel this way, because truly I'm kind of pulling this out of you-know-where, but it feels like way less teams are surprising in a positive way for most of their fan bases compared to surprising in a negative way because fans are so naturally optimistic. There are a lot more teams like the current 49ers who are sort of a bummer for a team that was supposed to be a juggernaut than there are teams like the Vikings that come out of seemingly nowhere, not if you ask a Minnesota fan, and just run the league, right?
Yeah.
So the fact that the Bears are good enough to put a pounding on Carolina is a major step forward because we can say whatever we want, Nick. Traditionally, the Bears have been on their level. Traditionally, it takes a primetime dog fight to beat the Panthers by 3 points in the same season that they cede the #1 pick to the Bears.
Well, and there's 2 things about that, Robert. One is we've been on the other end of that. I feel like a lot of times where it feels like we're at that talent level where it's like, it's not even close. You're not going to get pressure on the other quarterback because your D-line's not good. The weapons are young, but they don't ever like do what you want them to.
High potential, low output, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And the other end of it too, though, is like to not discredit Chicago. This has been the season of upsets, y'all. Like if anyone's been in any of those survivor pools, like pick'ems, right? People have just been getting upset after upset. Cincinnati lost to New England, et cetera. Like things have just continually happened where people, I mean, a lot of survivor pools are like almost over because the consensus team that was supposed to win has been losing. So Chicago winning, and everyone's like, well, it was just Carolina. They got the job done, and everyone hasn't done that. So when you keep doing that, and you're 3-2 right now, and I think it was they're maybe tied for 7th best team in the NFC. I'll take it.
Look, Nick, we got a comment this time last week. I think I told you about this on the pre-show, right? No, it was a post-game show. But I told you we'd gotten a comment about how we sounded like homers on the last podcast, and you and I ended up short on where the Bears were going to land. I predicted 30-10. You said, wow, they win 36-10 in a game that Caleb Williams doesn't even sound satisfied about their offensive performance, which in and of itself is something that I do like. And there's plenty worth talking about in this game, but I do, Nick, want to give the tiniest little round of applause so far, because if there's one thing that this Bears staff continues to impress me with, and I really mean that, they are extracting every drop of talent that you could get out of the defensive players. Javon Dexter is playing as good as he can. Andrew Billings is playing the best football of his life. Jalen Johnson looks unbeatable out there. When they let Tyreek Stevenson line up in man coverage, he looks spicy and he's deflecting passes. Jaquan Brisker has me stuffing crow down my mouth because he's been unbelievable this season. Like, I could sit here. Tremaine Edmonds looks like a problem. And last year, he looked like a problem for Chicago. But this season, dude, it is the season of, why didn't Andy Dalton throw the ball? You turn on the All-22 and you go, Tremaine's there, Tremaine's there, Tremaine's there, Tremaine's got him again. Tremaine's there. Tremaine's there.
It didn't look like they were almost toying with him at times. Like, there were plays I just watched Jalen Johnson, and he's like, all right, are you going to throw to this guy? Nope. And then he comes up and just hammers the guy on the check down. It's like you weren't even close on any of the 3rd and longs or things like that. Like, it felt like a lot of defenders were in that. And I said this pregame, and I have 2 other things I want to get to just about the other game, and we'll come back to it. But you said postgame about how Darrell Taylor is. I watched the All-22. Y'all, I've not been giving him enough credit. Like, I was giving him credit, but he's a problem.
He's a menace.
He's a menace. There was one play. He beat the guy so fast on a play. Dalton was semi-rolling to the left and then hit him. And I was like, that guy looks like he's on, like, you're playing Madden. He's like the turbo button the whole time. I was like, that guy was not playing in Seattle last year. I'm so glad he's playing like that in Chicago.
And I mean, I could talk about a lot of things. I'm trying to work on just how wordy I can be. You've got me thinking about it. I've been thinking about it. I get it. But so one thing I've just consistently impressed with. Look, I could run you down the whole defense if you wanted to.
Well, hold on though, because I want to get the one thing quick.
Let me get you this little nutshell. Okay.
Nutshell. Hold me to it.
The number one thing that I'm seeing in this defense, week in, week out, they've played 5 games. In 4 of them, they have done this. They are out physicaling the offense across from them. And in the 4th quarter, they're getting offenses to just start the bus in their own way. Like, we are seeing offense on offense on offense. Carolina did not want to play football with the Bears anymore in the 4th quarter. And it's worse on tape, because these guys don't look like they're mentally in it anymore. It's not going to get worse on tape than Tremaine Edmonds taking 3 steps towards, I can't remember who it was. So sorry, Jonathan Mingo. I'm going to pin
Javonte Sanders.
It was Javonte Sanders. You're right. And he sees the ball, outright doesn't look it into his hands. He doesn't want any of that smoke. He doesn't want any of that smoke. Then you've got Javon Dexter beating the tar out of Andy Dalton. And on the play after that, Darrell Taylor beats the tar out of Andy Dalton. It is a fun defense to watch in just how badly they want to out-physical you. And kudos to Matt Eberflus. There are a lot of defenses right now that are playing with skill, right, Nick? They're playing with their brains. And sometimes there is something to the old school idea of just being hard-nosed, more physical than the guy across from you. Right now it's bearing fruit.
Yeah, well, and they're keeping it simple. But I wanted to start this early in this pod. I want to talk about the game coming up for a quick second before we dive back for a reason, okay? The game's in London, y'all. Okay. You're like, yeah, we know that, Nick. The game's at 8:30 Central. Okay. I don't want you guys to miss the game. Okay. Like, you wake up on Sunday, like, oh, wait, maybe you have regular plans Sunday morning. This isn't regular timing. Okay. It's on NFL Network. If you don't have NFL Network, you got to find somewhere that does have it, or somehow get that worked out with a friend to go watch at their house or whatever. So 8:30 Central, don't miss it. You had talked about one thing about the Bears coaching staff being prepared, right? With the defense, et cetera. There's one small thing that I think could have a big impact. Chicago's in London, right? They're talking, DJ Moore today was talking about the not trying to spend all this money, and things like that in London right now. The Jaguars, which, by the way, y'all, Jaguars, not Jaguars, okay? Jaguars, okay? They land in England on Friday. So you think about the time difference, getting your rest ready, getting used to what it's like there. Chicago already has an upper hand, a massive upper hand, that I think gives them even more as a favorite to win this game.
Another thing, speaking of, okay, so what Nick is talking about is so key. I mean, Bears fans, anybody listening, if you have ever flown frankly, across the country, but let alone over the ocean. Generally, you don't plan a big excursion the day after for obvious reasons. You're jet lagged for probably, what do you think, Nick? Really, realistically, probably 4 days. It's just
Mhm.
manageable starting around day two. But manageable doesn't win you a football game because we're talking sightseeing in the big city. We're not talking trying to win a physical battle against a 300-pound behemoth.
Well, also, what's going on in Florida right now,
I was
y'all?
gonna say it's
I
a
mean,
little wild to me.
Bears fans, people, humanity. Like, I hope everyone is going to be okay from this. It doesn't seem like that's even possible, but I hope so. House is everything. But they're flying out of Jacksonville, which is, out of the realm, but still going to get hit by massive amounts of rain. What if they get delayed? It's Friday night when they leave. Like, to me, like the idea of flying late out of Florida in the week to go get, I don't know how many hours difference it's going to be, just makes zero sense to me.
Nick, I'll take it a step further, okay? Because I was talking about just the way that teams tend to do things, all in a lead up to say this feels like Jacksonville is sticking to their common schedule, but
Yes.
thoughtlessly, right? This
Mhm.
is not the week for Jacksonville, Florida to be lollygagging rather than getting up to London as soon as you can and frankly figuring out if you've got a spot to come home to while you're in London after the game. But I mean, look, I've said the same thing about the Bears years ago when they went to London and lost to the Raiders over the same idea. Like,
Yep.
that's what happened. They played an awful game. There's more than just anecdotal evidence to the idea that being in London and getting your body right is an advantage. But
Mhm.
beyond that, Nick, this just feels unserious from a Jaguars team that almost comes across with decision making like this, like they're happy they got a win, so people will stop asking them about it. I mean,
Yep.
I couldn't tell you that, but this Jaguars team reeks of the same stink I feel like we've seen on a couple of defunct Bears organizations. I hope I don't rue saying that. They've got some talent across the roster, but Nick, this feels like a dysfunctional team led by a
Mhm.
dysfunctional group. I am much more worried about Washington and frankly Arizona than I am Jacksonville. This is a
Yep.
game you're hoping looks a lot more like Carolina than it does Houston.
Mhm. I mean, to just on a personal level, okay. So again, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see over my shoulder here. I used to have this racing career. I used to do Spartan races, mud runs, things like that, competitively all over the nation. There was one I did that was like locally. It was like three or 4 hours away, and just far enough where I'm like, I'm not going to go to a hotel. So I woke up early that morning. I drove, and I always have a set thing. I'm going to be there so far in advance. Got to get my warm up in, get my nutrition in for the race, right? Did all of that, felt good, felt comfortable, and it wasn't like a high stakes race, so the competition
Right.
wasn't high, and honestly, I came into it thinking I was gonna win. I get into it, and, I actually was in the lead early on in the race, and then all of a sudden, I just didn't have
The
the
gas.
legs that day. Like somehow everything was not where it should have been because I started out the race like it should have been there. And it's because I drove, I sat in a car for a very long time. Like my body wasn't ready for the travel and that part of it that is I think exactly what's going to happen to Jacksonville where you're like, yeah, this is our normal routine except for you're traveling that far. You're going to have a little bit less, sleep. You're not going to be in your regular surroundings. It's not like a regular road game. You're going a long way. And so I think like they're going to be like, especially in the first half, I think the Bears could just blow them out and then just kind of sit on it and win this game. And it's to me, that's the same correlation because the Bears went into it being like, this is a massive undertaking. We're going to leave the day after that game on Monday, get there to make sure we are ready for it. Like they're taking it on like it's very serious. And
It's very
Jacksonville's like,
important.
it's not. I mean, it's a again, I mean, people make fun of the Bears organization, but they're treating it like they're an A-level organization versus the Jaguars, which are much lower right now.
Yeah, we've seen the Bears make a lot of goofy decisions through or over the past. And say what you will about Matt Eberflus, I'm not asking you to like him, but the Bears organization right now is acting like they are trying to become a playoff team. It's
Mhm.
the difference, Nick. I know you know this, and for anybody who's I don't know, literally anybody who's frankly competed for anything ever, you probably know what I'm talking about. They're the people that say that they want it and then they go home and they play through Mass Effect 2 again. That was me when I was a high school senior, to be honest. I am proud of what I was able to do, I guess, Nick, but realistically, I was much more the kid who said he wanted it and knew he could fall back on something cushy than the kid who lived like he needed it. Does that
Yep.
make sense?
Yep.
Like, I was not that into the nutrition question. And yes, I made some decisions that would give me an edge. I was not a horrible athlete and I did go to workouts. But Nick, it's the difference between whether you live to wake up at 5 in the morning to
Mhm.
study that extra hour of film versus the person who wakes up at 6 to still study some film because they do
Nice.
care, but
Mhm.
they're just not that guy about it.
Yep.
But
Yep.
you and I are doing a lot of hearsay. We're a very analytical podcast.
We are.
If there's one thing about this game that I am worried about, it's that the Jaguars' defensive line is one of the best defensive lines that the Bears are going to face in the easy phase of the schedule. Once they
Mhm.
get to that meat grinder later, look,
Yep.
I see this season in 3 acts, very distinct acts. Most people will break it up into quarters, but I think it is September, they're through it. Survive September, goal accomplished. Dominate the middle stretch before the Packers. You
Yep.
have to. You already got 2 wins under your or you already got 1 win. You probably need 3 more. Realistically, you only
Yep.
get 1 mulligan here.
Mhm.
Be even cooler if you won all 5, but I doubt it's going to happen. Then in the backstretch, survive.
Yes.
Like make it probably go 4 or 500, 4-4. But what
Mhm.
that means is that you have to navigate some challenges like Trevon Walker and a couple other pieces on this Jags defensive line
Yes.
that are the only pieces worth mentioning, dude. This is a
Mhm.
bad defense.
Oh, real bad.
Statistically and efficiency wise, they are as bad as Carolina. They're just
Mhm.
not light up front. So,
No.
how are the Bears going to navigate this? They
Mhm.
didn't actually have a lot of answers to this same question against Los Angeles until the second half. But hopefully, the Los Angeles game, frankly, got them ready for this. Not to mention, and you'll know better than I will, because I have a feeling you know this Jags team a little better than I do.
Mhm.
Hopefully, you don't have as bad a matchup at left edge, left tackle, because
Yeah.
Jared Verse might have been Braxton Jones' kryptonite worse than I've ever seen a player. I've watched
Yeah.
Daniil Hunter not have the game against Braxton Jones that Jared Verse did. Jared was walking through Braxton the entire game.
He was. Yeah. Yeah. It was bad. And I mean, there's Josh Hines Allen, used to be Josh Allen, went to Kentucky. He's better than Trevon Walker from Georgia. I mean,
Yeah, he's
both
good.
talented. And you can't forget revenge game for Bears legend Roy Robertson Harris is a starting D tackle there too. I mean, not very good, but
I was gonna
um,
say, I feel like Roy Rob has always had way more branding than he's actually had production,
yep.
including during his time at Jacksonville. Because every time I watch him, I'm like, he's fine, but it feels very Bilal Nichols. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah. He's tall, he's long, but um, before we dive super deep into Jacksonville, I feel like we should cover a little bit more of the Tennessee game. But I wanted to cover
Carolina.
those couple things of just that, you know, NFL Network, 8:30 guys, don't miss it. So I'll start with Caleb because I know you talked a little bit more about the Tennessee game than I did.
Carolina. We've done
Oh man,
Tennessee. We've
man,
buried
yeah,
Tennessee.
Carolina, man, holy
No worries.
time capsule going back, man. Um, okay, people are excited about Bill Murray. People are excited about the PFF grades, right, in the passing game and how things went. Carolina's just bad up front, y'all. And, they lost Jadeveon Clowney partway through the game. Like they had nobody that had any business going up against the Bears. And they took care of business. I get that. But when four of the O linemen had really good offensive line grades on PFF, I think that says more about Carolina's defense. I'm glad they got the job done. And I don't care who starts up front, y'all. Bill Murray, he can start the rest of the season. I don't care. But I'm just not gonna be super convinced, like, hey, they figured it out because I watched the run game, and I don't think the run game blocking was great. The
Nope.
third and short, the fourth and short that didn't convert middle of the field, there were some problems, some miscommunications
Yep.
there. Um, there's some things going on there. Talking purely about Caleb, um, good game, not great game. He later in the game, he got more into that. I want to be more of creation mode and passed up hitch, passed up open guys, passed up crosser, dig, missed Roma Dunze on a humongous 3rd and 14. I think would have been about a 70-yard touchdown. Missed him on a corner. I feel like Rome's getting missed more than anybody. But I think that just speaks to the talent level that Chicago has, that they're that good. And plus, DeAndre Swift can't break a tackle. If he gets one of these spin moves and breaks the tackle, or the dead leg where the corner got the ball and he didn't fumble it, but if he missed that one, I think he would have actually scored. So, like, I feel like Chicago dominated and they were close, but they have a lot more growth, I think, that people need to kind of realize. And, um, Caleb scrambling was good. So I think he's kind of stacking more and more stuff, but there's a ways for him to go here, I think.
Well, 100%. I mean, I'll use a simple analogy here, Nick. I think it's always important for people to put practice into action, and it almost doesn't matter who it's against, right? Like, to use a silly example, I've been playing in this Friday morning pickup league. Well, at one point, I wanted to try to get better at defense because I kept getting beat. I'm going to be honest, right? You start from ground zero, you're going to be pretty bad. So I went out into the my garage and I just shuffled around like an idiot by myself, trying to figure out which foot I could push off of better, because I'd been playing left foot forward the entire time because I wanted to deny a certain side, but I found out that I was pushing off better on my right foot. I shuffle back and forth for 15 minutes. I show up on Friday morning, have the best defensive day that I've ever had, right? I say this because I agree with you in principle that Josh Hines Allen and Travon Walker are much better than anybody that the Bears faced, sans Clowney. Clowney was pretty evident, and I say that as a credit to Clowney, where I kept going, who's 7? Oh, that's Clowney.
Yeah. Well, physical in the run game for sure.
Right. You want that when it comes to any player, period. But so all this to say, Nick, that the offense functioning, I think, has really positive effects going forward. You see the ball go in the hoop. You see the ball land in your receiver's hands. Yeah, the windows will be tighter when you play a better defense. Maybe you won't have as much time in the pocket, but there are still advantages, in my opinion, to just having succeeded. Now you know it works, right? You trust the coaching. You trust the staff. All that said, Caleb, so a lot of people have said, well, Robert, why are you so concerned about 1 or 2 Caleb rookie mistakes? And I'm trying to say back, first of all, I'm not concerned about 7 or 8 rookie mistakes. Like, it was not a clean game. There are moments where Caleb's late. There are moments where Caleb is imprecise with the ball. And yes, it was windy, but all I can tell you is what was on film. I don't have some wind effect on, like, monitor where I can adjust the ball for you. So I just have to take what's on there, guys. I'm sorry. That's a bias that comes from the tape.
You know what else? And I don't know if you saw this, but I found Caleb to be leaving clean pockets where he could have sat in there longer. He's decided, he's like, good enough, and I'm going to run. Even on like 3rd and 11, I'm like, why run? Just sit in there.
So
it's clean.
I would agree with you in principle, but in fact, the longer you sit in a clean pocket, the more likely you are to get strip sacked. Like, there is a point, in my opinion, where you should vacate the pocket. You shouldn't run into pressure. This is my opinion. You do not have to agree, Nick. But once you hit the 4-ish second mark, you're in the danger zone. There was even a point, you saw it, I'm sure, where Caleb looked around in the pocket. He checked the right tackle. He checked Braxton Jones. He saw he was fine. Braxton immediately lost his block, and he almost got strip sacked. And so, like, there's a balance to all this.
Right.
Funny part about the NFL is that there are 1,000 ways to be wrong. And I think it's funny, right? We talk about the 3rd and 14, which was in the second half. Bears had already done enough to blow the Panthers out, and for all intents and purposes, the Panthers weren't getting the game back. So context matters. But, Nick, that was as lost as I think I've ever seen Caleb. It looked like the Bears were feinting Mills to the outside. So you've got a big 12-yard out route and a post that was converted into a corner, but that corner ended up becoming a corner post. So it's false Mills to the outside of the field, but then you cut Rome back across the formation, and the dude's wide open. We've seen Rome wide open a lot. This was as wide open as I really mean he's ever been. But Caleb doesn't look like he knows what he's looking for. I mean, again, I go back to the Madden anecdote. Sometimes you show up at the line of scrimmage, you have no idea what the play call is. Nick, do you remember what happened immediately afterwards? Like, the moment that the Bears get the ball back, what happens?
After the 3rd and 14?
Mm-hmm. Ball goes to Carolina. Caleb possesses the ball. Then what?
They ran the ball a bunch, I think.
No, they did not.
They went empty. They went empty. Right.
After the 3rd and 14 was Caleb's cleanest drive of the season, getting all the way down to the goal line. I mean, we're talking gorgeous pass, phenomenal seam ball to Keenan Allen.
But it was empty for like 4 plays in a row.
Yes, and they're just chucking the pill. And I say that, Nick, because this is the part about the rookie growth that I think is so important, and I wanted to make sure got said on this podcast, is that this is all going to be 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Beautiful throw to DJ, beautiful other throw to DJ, massive miss to Rome, gorgeous drive, get headed down the field, great creation moment, getting into the end zone. Keenan's got to defend us another interception. It is all going to be like step forward, step back, step forward, step forward, step back. That's normal, especially because, can I say the quiet part out loud, Nick? We wanted a quarterback with anticipation. You have a quarterback with anticipation.
Dude, he throws with anticipation.
But anticipation, when the offense is not gelled yet, is going to create as many problems as it will solutions. Because if you throw to where a guy should be and they aren't there, then you look like you threw a horrible ball. I know you're about to argue with me because you're quarterback's coach. But I'm talking about how some of the worst, ghastliest interceptions in football come from a quarterback anticipating a receiver is going to get to a spot and they don't get there.
Well, okay,
purely results, not process, purely results.
No, I get there, but there could be interceptions. I think there's more interceptions being late than there's interceptions with anticipating. And to me, a perfectly thrown pass on time is the hardest thing to intercept. And so I would rather live in anticipation world, not staring down a receiver, right? That's different, but anticipation world than being late. And it's fun because it
really is.
I'll be honest, Chicago Bears fans. I'm a big Fields fan. I'm still cheering for the guy.
What's your dog's name?
I have, yeah, my dog's name is Fields. My license plate was Fields 1, right? All in. I mean, I liked Mitch. Not as much as Fields. I mean, I've been in this world of Steve Walsh and Eric Kramer and Cordell Stewart and Kyle Orton. I bet the whole way, y'all. We haven't had a guy that's anticipated like this. It's different. You can see it's special, but as Robert's saying, there's ups and downs. And the film says that. The film is the film. We're not like trying to pick things apart. There's really good things. There's some other things you're like, man, dude, why didn't you throw that? Or why are you doing this? So like, it's going to get better. Rookie year Caleb isn't going to be the best Caleb, okay? But seeing this already is super exciting.
I think I'm trying to put into words, basically telling you in a smarter fashion, Caleb got a 66-ish passing grade from PFF this last game. He deserved it. It shouldn't have been better. I think there are a lot of people that are saying, oh, what? You thought Jacoby Brissett threw it better than Caleb Williams? And it's like, well, I didn't watch Brissett's game, but Caleb played in an offense that thoroughly dominated the guys across from him, and the box score rewarded him for it. There's nothing wrong with that. You play the team across from you. It's literally the same argument that we make about Daniels sometimes. Like, and I'm really not trying to go there, but it's okay to say this was an easy one. And also, we got some great steps forward from a young quarterback. This is a process. Y'all, I'm going to be blunt. I don't give a darn what his PFF grade is against Carolina. I care a lot about whether he's ready to face the Packers. And this is a great step towards getting ready, but I'm glad we're not playing him next week. Does that make sense, Nick? Because we got some ground to cover. But man, if there's one other player, I don't think you and I have mentioned him explicitly yet on this show. We mentioned him pre-show when you and I weren't recording. Rome looks unreal. Rome Odunze looks like a dog, dude.
I mean, and we said this, okay, before I think the last game. And I'm sure people are like, man, they're just juicing him up, right? DJ had 2 touchdowns. DJ had, I think, over 100 yards. Rome's taking over like the RPO quick game to the single receiver side stuff that DJ was doing, and he's doing it better. But I still believe that Rome Odunze is the best receiver on this team. He gets open the most. He has the most juice. He has the best size speed combination, the route running. Like, and I know the production isn't there. People are like, well, look at the overall stats. I'm not talking about stats. I'm talking about like impact on the team. Case in point. Okay. And I made a video of this and put it on Twitter. The first touchdown to DJ Moore. Rome has a clear out. Okay. I think it's it's skinny post. And then you got the deep crosser, right? Keenan sets it. DJ comes underneath. It's a pick play, and
Keenan
then
does a great
I know
job with
there's,
that pick, by the way. He just runs
oh, he did.
straight at the guy.
What? Cole Kmet came in and saved with Swift. It was a great play all the way around. Caleb finds DJ. DJ stays in bounds, but Rome cleared out his corner as he's running, looking right for the ball. But also, when do they throw it? When they throw it, immediately stops, gets on the other side of the corner to shield that corner away from DJ. Then lets that guy go, finds the safety, or maybe it's the other corner coming over. I can't remember. Blocks him in the end zone for DJ to come in. I would say Rome Odunze had more of an impact on that play than DJ Moore did, and Caleb Williams did. That's unbelievable. He blocked 2 guys. He cleared out the area. It was everything you wanted. I'm not trying to play like a who deserves it more thing, but that selflessness is, I think, a true testament to what a first top 10 pick rookie, his impact can be on this team, because we need that from everybody. And I don't see it from everybody all the time, but I do see it from Rome.
You and I are in the middle of gassing up Rome Odunze, so I hope this doesn't come out of left field, right? If I had to guess, Rome is probably the least trustworthy receiver on the team right now. And by that I mean, is his 15-yard out at 15 yards? Is his 5-yard stick at 5 yards? If Caleb throws a ball and the wind sweeps it inside, has he seen that before and knows to get that hand out and knock the ball down? In Keenan Allen's case, to use a very specific Keenan Allen example, one of my favorite plays from him in particular, and it made it clear what being a veteran looks like, Nick, is that option route where Caleb reads an out route, Keenan reads a fade. I think the way J.C. Horn plays that ball, both routes were open, but when Keenan runs his fade, he allows unintentionally Horn free access to what could be a pick 6. So instead, Keenan Allen just grabs J.C. Horn and rips him to the ground in the end zone on a ball that just sails incomplete. That's the stuff that, if I can be real with you, I don't think Rome has thought of. Blatantly cheating, right? So that you can save your quarterback, or reaching a paw out and knocking the ball down. That's the kind of stuff that you have to do if you're going to be a number 1 target in the NFL. Sometimes your quarterback is going to throw a ball it's a little too contested and frankly might be dangerous. You got to bail your guy out in those situations.
Like the wheel in Indianapolis, right?
Yes, exactly. And so I look at this personally and say, I'm so stoked, Bears fans. I am so excited to tell you that Rome looks like the real deal. 50% of draft picks, especially first rounders, tend to fail. But the Bears seem like they have 2 legitimate superstar talents. One at wide receiver, one at quarterback. Both of them are taking 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And this thing's going to come when it comes, and when it does, it's going to come with fireworks. Right, Nick? Like, it kind of all comes at once. You finally clear the dam, and the water rushes through. Very similar when it comes to a wide receiver quarterback connection. With that said, I'm so stoked about his future, and I can't wait, because if there's any guy, look, I'm just going to throw a name out there. If there's any guy that is liable to hang 155 yards and 3 scores on the Detroit Lions, it's a guy like Rome Odunze. I mean, man, if you gave me rookie receiver against those rookie corners, like, I'm already thinking about it. I can't think about it. We get too excited.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing too is, and again, this is just a preference that I have, he's a hands catcher. Like, besides Cole Kmet, I don't think we have a better hands catcher on the team. And that's not a disrespect. I like the other guys. DJ's a body catcher, right? Keenan's good too. Keenan has had some body catching and stuff. Rome had some really good extension. One was at a bubble. He's all the way out. Boom. He was really good at that in college. Again, I know you think we're just juicing him up. I'm glad we have all of them. This isn't like we have to have this ranking thing. I'm excited about his future, and he's showing it. I know it's not huge box scores yet, but it's going to come, y'all.
There's another thing we ought to talk about, Nick, and it's that obviously the Bears are still installing plays, getting Caleb comfortable with different concepts, and frankly, the Bears are screwing them up too. There's an early play, I think it's the first sack, Nick, where Keenan Allen would be open if DJ Moore didn't run his route inside before running an out, and the spacing is so bad that there's no throwing lane to Keenan Allen. You're going to throw a pick. if you try to layer that ball in there. It is a throw that should be easy and right on the line, and suddenly has to become, it goes from being a 1 ball to a 2 ball in most people's coaching terms. And it's a way harder throw. Like, we saw Dak Prescott make one of those throws on the sidelines, and it might be one of the best throws of the year. Like when he dotted the ball to CD Lamb. You're not going to do that the overwhelming majority of the time. It's too precise. And so I can't help but look at this offense, Nick. The rushing speaks for itself. We are figuring it out is the nice way to put it. But these are exactly the defenses you want to be facing when you're figuring it out, because Flores isn't going to let you do it. If the Bears were playing the Vikings this next week, you could put them up for 10 points because that's the best case scenario.
So let's talk about the run game real quick. I know people have this thing where like Roshan's better. Roshan's better at certain things. Swift is better at other things. Like, y'all, we
look
talked
at you
about
describing
this.
Football players.
well, he's way more explosive. He's better laterally. He's way better as a pass catcher. I mean, y'all, look at the yards he's getting in the screen game as a check down. Like, he is changing drives because of that. Is he going to fit it up inside as well as Roshan? No, but Roshan isn't as good at cutting. There were plays Roshan had it. It's like, I can only go between A and B, and that's all I got in me. And Swift's like, I can go anywhere I want. So there's pluses and minuses. I will say this. There is one problem that hasn't been fixed. I don't know when he comes off of IR. Coleman Shelton is a problem. He's still a problem against a bad Carolina's D line. He got beat multiple times. Like, he's not the answer, Robert. And even against bad teams, he gets beat.
I'm going to express an explicit concern to you, Nick, because I just think this is the honest truth. I don't think Ryan Bates is the answer either. What we've seen of Bates was uninspired. Maybe he was hurt and the IR trip will fix it. I'm always open to a player playing better. Go look at some of my takes over the years. I've completely come around on guys I used to not be able to stand, like watching Brisker. That's just a using name.
Yeah, me too.
And it's like, you play well, you're going to get my attention. You play badly, you're going to get my attention. Yep. Coleman Shelton has barely been playable. He is playable. You can do worse, believe it or not, Bears fans.
Oh, yeah.
But he's light in the pants, and he looks like it on every single snap. Ryan Bates also looked light in the pants, and he looked like he had poor hands. The Bears will probably make the switch because they feel like they have to, but I don't know that things are going to get markedly better. Maybe you'll go from D to D+, but I don't want anybody to hop themselves up on hopium too early, because I really need to believe it when I see it. With switching the guys' positions, especially when we're doing this fun thing where we put Bill Murray into the game over Nate Davis. Like, I get it. I'm not actually trying to be a hater. A converted D lineman like Bill Murray is exactly the kind of weird story that might produce a decent player, especially at guard, which is considered the way I've heard it called, Nick, guard is more like a stat check, if you follow. Like, guard is, are you more athletic than the guy across from you? Yes, there are some hand technique positions, but guard is more of a dogfight, whereas tackle is more of a fencing match, if that makes sense. So something like guard with Bill Murray might actually kind of work. But at the same time, Nick, if we're seriously looking at this Bears offensive line, and let me list them for you, and Tevin is hurt, Nate Davis is benched, and Ryan Bates is unreliable, and Coleman Shelton looks below replacement level, F- for polls in the offseason, because this plan did not work. And I love Ryan Poles. You can soak a couple F- if the receivers, the quarterbacks, and the defense are good enough. So don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, Bears fans. But Nick, I do think it's okay for us to say, hey, dipstick check, week 5, the offensive line is worst case scenario. And there were people.
It's all backups. It's all backups right now. None of the starters you thought were there are there. And
it's not just because of health. Some of it's performance and or attitude, which sucks. I'm saying that's worse. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, and part of this too is I almost don't want Tevin to play because I want him healthy out of the bye. He had the ribs, then he had the ankle. And honestly, his film is so up and down. If he's hurt, I'd rather him get to be as healthy as he can be for the rest of the season versus play at 60% level and get beat some. And like, how much better is he than Davis, Bill Murray, Pryor, insert anyone else in there? I would rather him get healthy. I don't know if that's a hot take or not, but his level is just not great right now either.
While we're at it, let me get a couple more pulse checks from you. Pulse check on your thoughts on Braxton Jones.
Oh, I thought Darnell Wright had a better game than I expected. I thought Braxton, he's just so up and down. There's plays where he gets beat in the run game. I'm like, how did you get beat here? I just feel like it's very inconsistent play from him. Although I think he's our best overall O lineman right now, which I think just speaks to the O line. But I expected better this year, I guess, if that's the pulse check.
I think Braxton is who I thought he was, and this is exactly the player name I'll use, Bears fans, is Charles Leno. I'm not trying, for those of you that hate him, to bring up really horrible memories or something. I'm more saying you get just one rung less than you want. Right,
Yeah.
Nick? If he was one rung better, we'd love him.
Yes.
But he's one rung below what you'd like. And so you can get kind of frustrated because I do think he has been the Bears' best lineman this season.
I mean, if you look at it through the lens of a 5th round pick, you love him. You're like, this guy's fantastic as a left tackle. But if you look at it as he could be our future left tackle, you're always like, you're right in this line of, do you pay him or not?
And with Darnell Wright, my favorite part, you touched on him a little bit. I'll give you my pulse check. When I look at Darnell Wright, I am excited about his future. I'm not excited about his now. When I see Darnell Wright, I see a player who's hurt. It's hard for me. We saw Mason West speculate that he was hurt, and some stuff got brought up about his injuries. Mason's usually pretty on with these things. I trust what he's talking about. And he mentioned that Darnell Wright's been gritting through stuff for a while. And I'll tell you, Nick, I think it looks like it. The good news is, against teams like Carolina, Darnell shuts out the opposing edge rusher, which when you're looking at a good player, hurt to me means that you won't be able to make plays against the guys that are as good as you. But usually the pedigreed players like Jalen Johnson playing through a separated shoulder is still going to shut out the Xavier Legetts of the world. Because when you're that good, you're just better than the guys who aren't at your top 10 pick level. To me, Darnell Wright still looks like an exciting physical ball of ability. As far as the play we're seeing on the field, it's not clean enough. It's not technical enough. And he looks like he's laboring just to move it all. It's a gritty performance. We saw him play last year with a separated shoulder, I'm convinced. So it's not a question of toughness for a guy like Darnell Wright. I just hope he doesn't end up broken over the next couple of years of his career.
Well, okay. So if we want to have that to lead into our Jaguar preview here.
Oh, great segue, Nick.
We just talked about, I honestly think that's the game. I think the game is if Braxton Jones against Trayvon Walker and Darnell Wright against Josh Hines Allen, if those go well, or if Chicago can chip enough and that goes well, I think they win the game pretty easily. If those two become a problem and all of a sudden Caleb has a strip sack, Caleb doesn't have time, Caleb is getting hit, so his clock's going quicker than he wants to, then it's a way closer game than we all anticipated.
Nick, let me go full Fox Sports Radio for a minute, because I've got a way to make a point that I want that I think you'll laugh at, okay? So I'm going to directly try to impersonate one of my heroes in the media industry. You're all going to laugh. Colin Cowherd is one of my inspirations. The fact that that guy can sit on the radio for 4 hours a day back when he was on ESPN, The Herd, was inspired. And you can't convince me otherwise in a era of 1 hour shows once a week. You know what I mean, Nick? But anyways, Colin Cowherd's the kind of guy that would say something like, you know, part of playing quarterback in the NFL, when you really take a look at it, is toughness. Some guys have it, some guys don't. And at the end of the day, you can make all the fancy throws, you can make all the fancy plays with your legs, but who's going to hang in there in the fourth quarter and make that one more play, just like we saw Dak Prescott make the other night? And Nick, as silly as it is, I think both of these quarterbacks have tough days in front of them, Trevor Lawrence and Caleb Williams. But I also think the biggest factor the Bears have going for them. Sorry, I've dropped the Colin thing. I'm Robert now again.
No, you're good.
Congrats.
You're good. But the voice changed, so I got it.
I think if you hit Trevor a couple times the way Javon Dexter hit Andy Dalton a couple times, I think Trevor's going to shack up and get ready for the flight home. Like, I like Trevor Lawrence. I'm not trying to question his mentality, Nick. But at least what I've seen this season, if you can light him up, he will let the game go. I don't know if he wants it that bad. Whereas if Caleb, this is an if, I'm not going to assume anything, can stay poised through what is likely to be 2 or 3 nasty hits, whether they're sacks, I don't know. But I will just be shocked if Josh Hines-Allen and Travon Walker don't lay a couple thunderous hits on him, right? Bears line is in the state where I just think that's going to happen. In that case, Nick, if Caleb picks himself up, shakes it off, makes a play on the subsequent drive, that may be enough on a day where the Jaguars are going to let stuff open. You look like you're looking something up. Did I inspire you to think of something?
Well, no, this is good. And so, okay, you guys, when they have the this kicker hasn't missed in 30 attempts and then they miss, right? I had one of those, okay? So I posted this on Trevor Lawrence, okay? Because it's been bad, y'all. But I don't know, people know how bad it's been, okay? So before this last week, okay, because I cursed it, Trevor Lawrence has averaged 182 passing yards per game the first 4 weeks. 182 is not high. I understand the league's down a little bit, but it's not good, okay? Let's go back further, Robert. Only one of his previous 15 games were over 300 passing yards. Only 2 of his previous 25 for a, whatever you want to call it, franchise guy, generational guy, the Messiah, whatever you want to call it, right? For Jacksonville, that's not getting it done. What did he do against the Colts? 371 passing yards, 82 completion percentage, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick. So I cursed it, but I still don't think it's over. I don't think he figured it out. We know how bad the Colts were in that secondary, y'all. And the Bears, Robert, EPA, the number 1 secondary in the NFL. So if you want to talk about taking hits just due to coverage, sacks, coverage, hits, I'm not convinced Trevor Lawrence is it, just pure it. And when you go up against a heavyweight like that, and then you're talking about getting hit on top of, what I see back there, I don't want to throw, he's going to have some real issues.
I tend to think so. I mean, now granted, look, I am a Trevor Lawrence enjoyer, okay? I consider myself a man of culture. But this is T-Law's worst season of his career, if you ask me. Over the last couple of years, Nick, the numbers tell a better story than this. Trevor's doing great in a bad system. This year, it's like, no, Trevor's part of the bad system. That happens sometimes, right? All this to say, my dad, you've heard me say it before, my dad's big saying was, in football, you're never as good nor bad as your last game. Yeah. Good. Because I think the Jags just played their good game. And I wouldn't be surprised if they fall back to earth. That doesn't mean that they're going to be awful. But Nick, this reminds me a lot of when the Panthers got fed up with losing. They benched Bryce Young. They thundered the Raiders. And since then, they have looked like the Panthers, but with Andy Dalton now. Yep. Right? Because that's what happens. You get so hopped up, so emotional, and then it's really hard for bad teams to sustain playing above their talent level 2 weeks in a row. Well, this is why Cinderella is so hard in football. Yeah. Right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's tough to go 0-16, 0-17. Like that. That's just really bad luck. Do you want me to I have all the numbers. Do you want me to go offense or defense?
Let's go defense first.
Okay. So Jaguar, and I'll get to injury report after all that. So, Jaguar defense, 30th overall. And again, this is expected points, added, EPA, whatever you want to go. 30th overall, 24th in pressure percentage. That includes sacks.
I love that, actually. I assumed they'd be a little better. The Rams were way better than that. The Rams were like 7th. right?
The Rams are one of the better pass rushes in the NFL, but not one of the best defenses. It means they get pressure, but they got nothing on the back end. So 24th in pressure percentage, 30th in blitz percentage. So they don't blitz much. Really, it's the
I
front four. And
love that for Chicago.
yep, yep. Which helps. I mean, you can chip and then you still have time.
A lot of teams
30.
don't blitz, don't stunt either. At least a lot of teams are very, we play our games or we don't play our games.
Yes.
Flus is 20th ish, if memory serves, in blitz percentage, which is lately it's sort of a move towards we're gonna blitz you, we just pick our spots, which fits what I think Flus is as good as I could ask for, right? Flus isn't becoming Todd Bowles anytime soon. But
Yeah,
he can
I'm glancing probably 25th. Yeah.
he can shift a little more towards we blitz sometimes. We just don't blitz that often. But anyways, keep going. Didn't mean to interrupt your flow.
But pressure percentage for Chicago is 7th. So
yeah, they balled him, dude.
It works. Yeah. All right. 32nd pass defense, and y'all, 32nd by a margin from 31st. Like
yikes.
Bad. 14th in run defense.
Yikes. This could be. Yeah. I'm just saying, Nick. Okay, so I can't predict this. We do our predictions at the end. You are describing the defense that could be, I'll call it now, not 1, 2 50-plus yard scores for Rome. Like, this is where you run the corner post and you rock him. And then you run the post corner and you get him again.
Robert, I got more stuff here in a bit that's going to get you more juiced, okay? So hold that. And then you're going to be like, okay, I see it now. 14th in run defense. So considering the Bears are bad at running anyway, I don't expect Swift to have a game there. 30th in points per game, 29th in points per drive. So both of those stats say that's who they are. 25th in third down percentage allowed, which is not good. 30th in red zone percentage, which means if you get in the red zone, you're going to score on them. Yikes. And now the individual starters and their PFF grades. So Trevon Walker, I talked about him, former first overall pick, 42nd PFF. And again, this is ranking by position, y'all. 42nd. Jeremiah Ledbetter, D-tackle, 45th. Roy Robertson Harris, again, Chicago Bears legend, y'all. Revenge game for him, 72nd. Josh Hines Allen, used to be Josh Allen, changed his name. People are confused. 9th. So he's the guy you have to focus on. Devin Lloyd, former first-round pick, 11th. Chad Muma, same draft as Devin Lloyd, third-round pick, 58th in terms of linebacker. So again, you got a decent guy, 11th there.
Nick, I'm giggling because I'm sure you've dealt with this for a lot longer than I have. It is kind of funny going, oh, Chad Muma. Hey, I thought he was fun, if a little underskilled. He always had a motor. How's he doing? Bad?
Yep.
Sorry, Chad.
Yep.
Like, it is funny
I know.
how you remember your draft grade, right?
Yes.
And you go,
yes.
I don't know if you were going to translate. Did you You didn't?
No.
That's too bad.
It's one of those like, hey, I like this guy, and then they don't make it, and you're like, I'm not going to retweet that take, you know. Corners, Ronald Darby, 56th. Monteric Brown, 25th. So doing decent. And then their nickels, Darnell Savage, who's 57th. You remember him from Green Bay.
Yikes.
I will say this. Tyson Campbell, other starter. He's been on IR. He did practice limited today and opened up his 21-day window. I would doubt that he would just be active right away. Most of the time they take a couple weeks to ramp up and have some practices in. So I don't think he'll be active there. Now, here's the part where you're going to get juiced, Robert. Okay. You're like, I don't get it, Nick. Where is
I don't know. That sounded pretty good. That did sound pretty good.
Ready? Safeties. Antonio Johnson ranks 78th out of 80 safeties.
Rough.
Andre Sisco ranks 76th out of 80 safeties.
Oh, no.
The worst safety pairing in the league.
Yikes, dude. And speaking of, another thing that may work is Cole Kmet is becoming, I'm going to say this one time, Nick. Cole Kmet's becoming a top 5 receiving tight end. Mm-hmm. Like, Cole Kmet ran a couple of routes in this last game, including one, I'm sure you saw this, where he ran up the seam and just threw his linebacker on the ground. And it was like, okay, Cole, okay, you got me out of my seat. Like,
you see the other one where Caleb missed him? Is like, that's a touchdown.
You mean the one where he pops free on the right side of the play, but Caleb's working the concept on the left, and he gets there and he thinks about it, and then he doesn't pull the trigger. Yeah, dude's running routes.
And then he scrambled. Yeah. So I'm with you there. So That's defense, y'all. Okay, let's dive into offense. Jaguar offense, 21st. And again, this is including the breakout game last week. 21st overall, 26th in passing, 7th in rushing. I'll get into that in a bit. 21st in points per game, 22nd in points per drive. So again, that's who they are. Third down percentage, they're 30th. They only convert 25.9% of third
Oh,
downs.
that's bad.
20th in fourth down percentage, 24th in red zone percentage. They're not efficient, y'all. All right, individual players. Trevor Lawrence, 18th among all quarterbacks. Travis Etienne, 44th among all running backs. He's been banged up. He's on the injury report. We'll talk about that later. But Tank Bigsby, former running back at Auburn, he's not ranked. He hasn't had enough snaps, but his overall grade is 86.8.
I was
He's
going
been
to say
popping
he's
off
looked pretty
some
good,
big
right?
runs. Yep, popping off big runs this year. Okay, receivers. We know this guy. We thought about him a little bit. Brian Thomas Jr., 16th overall PFF wide receiver.
Really?
Mm-hmm. He's been getting some yards and some big plays. Christian Kirk, 40th. Gabe Davis. Remember we thought about signing him? Talking about things we thought about before. 109th receiver.
Bad.
Evan Ingram has been injured. He's been out for a couple of weeks with a hamstring. He's been limited practice this week. He is no grade right now. Brenton Strange, former, I think, late second round pick, 37th among tight ends, kind of a nobody. All right. Offensive line, not bad. Okay, left tackle Cam Robinson, 34th. Left guard Ezra Cleveland, which I still will never remember, Robert, or know why the Vikings traded him away. He's 9th among guards. They traded him away for literally nothing.
Go Ezra.
And he did good well there, and then he signed an extension there. Mitch Morse came over from Buffalo as the center. He is 15th, so decent. Brandon Schrafe, 34th. Again, older, trying to hang on, got the big contract, not as dominant anymore. Anton Harrison, right tackle, 63rd. And that's up against Montez Sweat or Darrell Taylor. That could be a problem for them.
Yeah, Harrison in particular is the kind of guy that I would imagine would struggle a lot with Montez because Harrison doesn't, if memory serves, have the longest arms in the class, and his anchor is just okay. So a power rusher like Sweat could be a real issue. Another thing you mentioned, Morse is pretty old. Scherf is pretty old. I don't know about you, Nick, but when I get older, I get creakier. And when I get creakier, I don't travel as well. I wonder if, in particular, you could get a kind of slow or lethargic day from the center and the right guard. And if you did, that would, in my opinion, Nick, this defense, I hate to put it on these guys, this defense goes as Andrew Billings and Javon Dexter go. The moment they're out of the game, they are a full tier worse of a defense. But when they're in the game, and especially when they're rushing the passer well, this defense might be one of the top 3 in the league. And I'm pretty mellow on this defense. So I'm really trying to be clear with you that when these guys are penetrating, there's just not a lot of answers that you're going to have.
You know what I found in that game? Because I watched all 22. We talked about this, I think, post game even, about how Chris Williams got blown out, and that's how Chuba Hubbard had that big lane. Even late, I saw Chris Williams in the game. Big lane, big lane. I almost like Howard in there better. At least he's not going to have a massive lane that he's going to allow or get shoved over 2 gaps. To answer your question, Anton Harrison is 54th percentile in arm length. He's only 14th percentile in height. He's only 6'4". Cam Robinson, other tackle. Cam Robinson's a massive human. 6'6", 322. 90th percentile arm length, 80th percentile hand size. So he's a big dude over there.
And he's not very fast, right? I mean, you're using combine measurements for a guy who's 5 years older, so none of that may apply. But
yeah, maybe. Yeah.
If memory serves, Cam's the kind of guy that you can beat around the edge, which fits what Darrell Taylor likes to do. And then Anton Harrison, I was just remembering, I liked his technique at Oklahoma. So I'm going off draft grade here, right?
Yep.
But he always seemed like a project that I did like in the first round. I did see him as worse than the other 3. Not that Broderick has made him being a project and taken any higher, look any better. But this is the kind of matchup against. So my favorite part about Montez Sweat, Nick, if I was going to put it into a very tiny little nutshell, is that Montez knows who he is. And if you can't stop him from doing it, he will do it to you all game long. He is
Mhm.
a long power rusher that's going to stuff the run, be a problem, and crunch the pocket. And this is the kind of tackle that Montez traditionally just throws into his quarterback. Like, you've seen it. Like, get under Anton's pads, drive him backwards, get that big arm up, and go for the ball. And so we'll see if Montez can do it. What a heroic game it would be if he could. But
Mhm.
I really can't help looking at this offensive line versus the Bears' defensive line, muttering to myself, this is the big question. We came into the Bears' defensive line. I want to just say this part out loud, Nick, right? Guys like you and me, level-headed people, looked at this Bears defensive line and said, it's not deep and it's got way too many question marks.
Mhm.
The good news is most of their question marks turned into exclamation points. Andrew Billings didn't just return, he's played better. Javon Dexter didn't just take a step forward, he took two. He still
Yep.
has two more steps that maybe he could take. But even where we are right now is, I think, legitimately unexpected. And if you're telling me that you expected it, you might be a homer. And that's okay because this was the best case scenario. And we should be stoked about that.
Well, can I? One thing I thought about watching film, Austin Booker, right, was the guy we thought, okay, this is going to be the other edge, and he's going to be the, Max Crosby just reincarnated as a rookie. He hasn't done much of anything because Darrell Taylor and Walker took a step. But here's the other thing, maybe a new caveat we didn't even expect. Jacob Martin practiced in full
I
today.
knew you were going to do this.
And again,
I saw this
what's
news
wrong-
today and I was like, Nick's going to mention this tonight.
What's wrong with another pass rusher that, again, Austin Booker hasn't helped, to be honest with you. A ton of energy. He's got a lot to
He's a
learn.
rookie.
But Jacob Martin could help this team. You could have even more pass rush, better for everything, better rotation, keep you guys fresh, which I don't know if they'll activate him, but at least it starts the window for him.
They need another D tackle so badly. And I'm
Oh.
not sure Zach Pickens is going to be any better than what they have. I mean, I hate playing the game with you can't get much worse when you're talking about guys like Chris Williams, because you can always get worse no matter who the football player is, unfortunately. But I really think the Bears could be in the market for at least looking at what trade options are out there when it comes to a second wave defensive tackle. I love the
Yep.
guys I have. Honestly, there are a lot of defensive tackles in this league that you could trade for. Let's use an example, Nick. If the Bears somehow traded for Jonathan Allen, which looks less and less likely
You
as
can't now.
no, yeah, exactly. They're too good. But
Yeah.
if in theory you traded for a guy at Jonathan Allen's level, he'd still come off the bench because the Bears starters have been too good to do anything else with. Like, you're not taking Andrew Billings and Javon Dexter off the field immediately. Anyways, I've made a joke about this on stream last night, Nick. I want to see what you think. Darrell Taylor is proving yet again that if you wear the armbands and you pick out a sick number and you look good in the jersey, you will level up. Like,
Swag matters, man.
aura matters.
What? Is that because I talked about Caleb with the glove, right? More swag, and he had a good game.
Right? Who knows? Could be. But
That's funny.
overall, let's hit final thoughts and predictions. Nick,
Sure.
how you feeling?
After looking at the numbers, actually I thought the PFF grades were better for Seattle or for Jacksonville versus I thought what their overall production has been. And to me, that leads into coaching. I think the coaching hasn't been good there. They might have some guys doing good individually, but it's not cohesive. It's not going together well. They're 1-4. They just come off a good game and they're going to come late. They're going to travel Friday. I'm feeling confident, not as confident as I was against Carolina, but I'm feeling confident. I mean, I think a lot would have to go wrong in terms of like you lose a turnover battle by multiple. Maybe you have an injury, a big injury. They have a big play to Brian Thomas Jr. or two. Like, I think a lot would have to happen for Chicago to easily lose the game. And Chicago is a better overall team. So if you're within one score, I think this is one of those games that you should win, even if it's close, because you're favored, you're a better team, you're a better coached team. And so do you want me to do the predictions now?
Let's do predictions after I hit my final thoughts.
Okay.
So then we'll
Yep.
go
So that's
number.
mine. Yep.
Um, I would tell you that I think that this is a major game for the defensive coordination and in particular the corners. And I say that because Jalen Johnson is probably not going to shadow Brian Thomas Jr., but Brian Thomas Jr., rookie or not, is the second best field tilting receiver or weapon that I think that they've faced all season. In order, I think Nico Collins was phenomenal. I think Jonathan Taylor was awesome, but Brian Thomas is so much more outstanding than the rest of the Jaguars unit that he's that guy that, like you're saying, Nick, if you can bottle Brian Thomas to 4 catches for 30 yards, you should win the game.
Yep.
Realistically, you should win the game. And the problem that I have is that the Bears are playing the corners at boundary corner and field corner, with Jalen take up the most space and Tyreek Stevenson giving up or like playing in as close to a phone booth as a corner can. But if they call cover 3 and Tyreek Stevenson drops into that kind of lazy looking zone technique and Brian Thomas Jr. gets to his depth and breaks inside, you could have a 40-yard play, especially with Elijah Hicks in the game, who I hate, by the way, filling in for Brisker. Like he's exactly the type who's liable to blow his eyes and not make it to his
He
spot.
looked solid in preseason, Robert. Actually,
Dion Bush,
I know.
Dion Bush.
Hold on. Well, okay. Actually, I have to get to this because I know you're doing final thoughts, but I haven't talked to the injury report. I should do that. So Bears didn't travel, already out. Jaquan Brisker, Zach Pickens, Terrell Smith, limited Kyler Gordon with the heel and Tevin Jenkins with the ankle, and the full participant was Jacob Martin, which tells me, Robert, if they're practicing in full, Jacob Martin traveled with the team as well, so he could get activated
He
because
probably
he's
will
in
play, right?
London. Yeah. All right. So Jaguars, Evan Ingram practiced limited with a hamstring, which is promising, but he's been hit or miss with that all season right now. Travis Etienne has a shoulder. He actually didn't finish the game last week. Tank Bigsby did. So that's, I mean, again, I like Travis Etienne, but that's a bonus for Chicago if he cannot go. Darnell Savage starting nickel with a quad was limited. Devin Lloyd, the 11th overall linebacker in PFF, limited with a knee. Gabe Davis limited with a knee. Danielle Thomas didn't play last week. Neither did Yasser Abdullah, but they both practiced limited. One was a hammy, one was a neck. And then Tyson Campbell, I already talked about with the hamstring coming off of IR. He opened his 21-day window and practiced limited as well.
To me, speaking of the injury report, the scariest part about where Chicago is right now, Bears fans, buckle up, because I'm going to be very honest with you, right? The corner matchup is the part, Nick, that I could see the Bears just not thinking through well. If they just play boundary field and they don't help against Brian Thomas Jr., they may allow BTJ to have a day that I don't think he deserves, because I think this defense should be better than allowing the most known guy to run roughshod on you. Outside of that, I've got bad news, Bears fans. This is a game the Bears should win. If the Bears are who you think they are, you should flat out expect them to win. Yes, there's an element of London. I understand that. But there is a point where Kansas City rolls up against the Raiders and they go, any given Sunday, but other than that, we should be fine. And then they are. And I think, as where the Bears are right now, these next couple games, they should be handily favored in all of them, and you should expect them to win. Not just trying to incite rage. Like, Nick, this offense should score against the Jaguars.
Yep.
If you score 24 points against any football team, the Bears have yet to give that up, if memory serves. So you should be set. So if you think this offense can score 24 points, yeah, sure, with some defensive assistance, more than likely, Trevor's going to give you the ball twice. So at that point, can you cash in 24 points? I think Chicago can. Maybe that's me being optimistic. Maybe I'm bought in. But I tend to think that this is the kind of game where the Bears are making the right decisions. I legitimately, right now, Nick, I had this game closer until they made the travel decisions they did, and I'm giving the Bears a full touchdown for it because I think that's that big a decision. So we'll see if it plays out that way.
So what are you going with? What's the prediction?
Okay. For me, I think it's going to be 27-14.
Okay. Wow, I was going 27-17.
Okay, there we go. Look at
Wow.
us.
Well, we're close. How about that? Um,
I hope so. You and I have actually been
yeah.
pretty good on these. Hey, can we just say that? You and I have been pretty good on these score predictions so far.
I, I'm doing a pick 'em every game with some coworkers, and I've been terrible the last 2 weeks. But as long as I'm good with the Bears, I don't really care.
There you go.
I do want to take a note of this. So we touched on it a little bit, y'all. In terms of like emoji, for the pod, if you guys are on YouTube. Can we make that a heart this week because of all the stuff that's going to happen in Florida? You
Mhm.
know what I mean? Of hopefully giving some good vibes that way. I do hope that all that goes well tonight and tomorrow, and it's not as significant as people are saying. Because again, me and Robert were both Christians. We both really care
Mhm.
about people. So if you guys can do that, we'd appreciate it.
Absolutely. Nick, I got a knuckleball question for you. You have not prepped for this.
I play baseball, man. Knuckleballs are cool.
Coming off the bye, if you had to pick today, what is your score prediction for the game in Washington?
Again, because of the bye, I'm going to give Chicago the win, and I know that that's going to be, homerism or whatnot, but having 2 weeks to prepare for a running quarterback, short passing game that takes a couple of shots at Terry McLaurin, I would say it's probably going to be a little bit more of a lower scoring game. They have a bad defense, I get that, but also they run the ball, so the game's going to be a lot shorter than you think. I would say it's probably going to be something like 17-14.
This is literally us looking past the Jaguars. So like
Yep.
I don't want to get hosed.
Yep. Yeah.
but we don't play for the team. So we can do that all we want, right?
Yeah.
I will say the Washington game I think is probably the most interesting game that they've played to date because Washington is just a team we didn't quite see coming like this. I mean,
Yeah.
honestly,
They run the ball really well.
whatever ball knowers that Cliff hung out with in Thailand, like, let me know, Cliff, because I need to go meet him. What they've been doing when it comes to running the ball has just been phenomenal, Nick.
Can I okay, I gotta say this though. It's Cliff. Okay. For people that don't know Cliff as a head
Oh,
coach.
oh, you're talking
Okay.
about how it always falls off.
Yes. I mean,
You're right, it
so
does.
I'm
I
I'm
literally hadn't thought about this, Nick.
yes. I'm
That
good for I'm
they
good friends with
collapse in the back half of the season.
well, everywhere he's been for those that don't know, everywhere that he's been,
Arizona would be a hot Super Bowl pick.
started
I really
well,
want to.
huge collapse. Starts well, huge collapse. I'm friends with Thor Nystrom. If you know Thor or
Mhm,
not.
mhm.
And he was a big one of this too. He's like people just like him because he looks like the guy off of the Notebook. Whatever, I can't remember his name offhand.
Gosling,
Yeah, and so he always starts well. I mean, literally every single season, y'all.
Texas
4-2,
Tech,
boom,
Arizona. Like
boom,
he's
boom.
always started well.
Yes, and so to me, it's gonna get figured out at some point. And again, I like Jaden Daniels. This is I'm not trying to be anti him. I'm anti Cliff. I don't think that he figured it out. He always starts well and always ends bad. And if you're going to pick a
Hey,
team to figure it out, it's going to be the team that's third in EPA or DVOA in defense in Chicago.
USC looked pretty good, and then they did not. So I who's to say? But I'm gonna be honest, Nick. For narrative reasons. So look, Bears fans, I'll close with this. This is my final thought. I think that the Bears, like Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels noise is so silly and meaningless and noisy and annoying that unfortunately my like gut reaction is to cheer for the story to resolve itself. Like Caleb play well, Jaden does not play well, story goes away, right? I don't want to cheer against Jaden Daniels though. Like I
Right.
hope Bears fans you all feel this way. Jaden has been really good at what he's been asked to do. There are questions worth asking about whether Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels are taking the same test, but Jaden's grading better because what he's being asked to do and what he's doing, he's fulfilling nearly all of it. Does that make sense, Nick? Like, I don't think Jaden is being asked to progress to the backside of a play and hit his third read after going through a couple different coverage sets. I'm not sure Jaden is calling protections. I don't know some of this because I haven't watched Washington games, but people I trust are telling me that it is an offense with handrails on it. And there's nothing wrong with handrails. All offensive coordinators should aim to make their offense as easy as possible. But the more handrails your offense has, the more things do fall apart in the back half of seasons. And the less handrails you have and the more you can master, the more you're able to adjust, pivot, and excel even when defenses stop what you're doing in the first or second quarter. So time will tell what happens with Caleb Williams and the Bears compared to Jaden Daniels. But Nick, man, I am so excited over these next couple weeks because if the Bears can head into that Green Bay game 5-4, 6-3, or 7-2, Lord willing, ooh, that's going to be a spicy Bears-Packers week. Like, I can't say the thing that I texted you about earlier today. I'm not ready to say it on the air yet, but I'm just excited about that game for a number of reasons.
Yeah, I mean, to me, like if we look ahead to Washington, y'all, and you just look at numbers, okay, they have a good offense. The Bears have a good defense. Let's just say that cancels out. Then you have a Bears offense that's nearing league average, and Washington has the 28th ranked defense. So, like, if you want to like try to just why would we give them the edge? That's why I'd go there. But yeah, again, comment, heart, rate, review. You could put your I had fun, man, of like the best D tackles. Do you have anyone that you want in terms of comments with the heart?
Let me see. You did best D tackles? Oh, you're right.
Like favorite Bears D tackle.
Yeah,
And you know what was funny about it because of Billings and stuff. We had some people put Keith Traylor, and then I saw all of the Keith Traylor about the Jaguar, which you don't remember because you weren't. I was a fan then, and they had Ted Washington and Keith Traylor, and it was about 700 pounds of man at D tackle, Robert.
Oh my gosh.
And they took up so many gaps that no one touched Brian Urlacher. He just floated and tackled everybody. It was a great concept. I liked it awesome. A lot.
I think I'll ask this: if you could add one non-sweetness running back to the Chicago Bears from Bears history, who would it be? Nick, I do want your answer.
Right now?
Yeah. Do you have one? Did somebody pop into your head?
I mean, I think the best ones. Wow, man, that's tough because you got Sayers, you got Forte, and then you have
Forte. Forte would eat. Like they would bench Swift immediately, and Forte would be a star.
But also an underrated favorite of mine. Again, who would probably, if you had to rank, and would be third in that order.
Thomas Jones?
Neil Anderson, man.
Oh man, he could play.
Neil Anderson had jets, and so a little bit different back, but again, could catch too. He outraced Darrell Green, who was the fast guy in the NFL. I saw him, and Darrell Green didn't catch him around a corner out, so you get some speed there.
I also think, it's barely honorable mention. It's just on the top of my head. Nick, if I had a do-over, I do think if the Bears could get David Montgomery for the deal that Detroit got him, and we avoid Swift, the Bears are probably better off. Like, I didn't think... What? Does that make sense?
Yeah, but David Montgomery is very inefficient. I was very critical of that, y'all. He's been better in Detroit.
I just love his pass catching. I feel like we spent so much time for years talking about David Montgomery, the runner. And I was like, yeah, but you get him the ball in space and he breaks a tackle. Like, unshocking to me that David Montgomery's sensational run in last week's Thursday night game, can't remember what day it was, came off of a pass because you get him away from the first level, and Demo is a demon. But I just mentioned him because that one's in the rearview mirror, and I have learned a lot personally about how you can't just go cheap at running back. It's great in theory, but in practice, you end up with a room of Jags if you're not careful. And I like Herbert. Like, I think Roshan's got ability. DeAndre Swift in the open field can be a real problem. Running backs are talented by and large, but the difference, I don't know, man. Maybe it's the highlights talking, but watching what Derrick Henry is doing, watching what Saquon is doing, watching what guys like Ashton Jeanty are doing in college, it feels like in the age of too high, the running back is coming back. And I can't not think about it. Like the big dog running back feels like it's becoming an important position again. And that's fun outside of the fact that the Bears don't really have one. But
yeah, well, and running quarterbacks help too. So no, man, I'm with you. Are we good here?
Yes. Heart emoji, favorite running back, like the video or rate the podcast. Thank you guys so much for listening. Bear down, and thanks for bearing with us.